Hey, I'm Mark,
And I'm Craig.
and this is Songwriter's Tales. Craig, who do we have coming on today?
Man, we have got somebody that you are not going to want to miss. I have a publisher in Los Angeles that has been working with my catalog for a couple of years now. And this guy is a who's who, not just in LA, but also in Nashville. He is a songwriter turned publisher, and he's written songs with Garth Brooks. He's done work with Kenny Rogers. Oh gosh, Tammy Wynette, Don Williams, Joe Diffie, the Oak Ridge Boys. This guy knows everybody and anybody in Nashville. Going to be a great show, Mark.
And what's his name?
His name is Rex Benson.
Cool. Let's do it. Hey, it's Mark. We are back with very special guest, Rex Benson. And Craig is going to give Rex the introduction that he deserves. And then we're going to let
Absolutely.
things happen the way they happen.
Yeah, let him roll out. So, hi, Rex.
Hey, bud.
Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm going to give a quick just overview of who you are. I've known Rex for several years now. Through music publishing, we worked with a song many years ago, and we've reconnected. And Rex is what is called an American songwriter, a music publisher, and a music industry professional. That's on your profile, Rex. He is with Rex Benson Music Group, Rex Benson Music with BMI, Checks to Rex Music with ASCAP, and Rex Rocks with CSAC. And for the first 20 years, Rex was a songwriter, primarily working out in Nashville, if I recall. And for the last 30 years, Rex has been a publisher. And so that's really the bottom line. And there's nobody in Nashville that I have ever mentioned that Rex does not know. So we're going to have a wonderful conversation. Rex is a great guy. So where are you, Rex? Tell everybody where you are right now with that wonderful shirt.
I live in Southern California. That's where I'm born and raised. I lived here my whole life, except for 1 year when I lived in a commune in Oregon when I was 19. But the rest of the time I've lived here. And I started working with Nashville in 1983 when I got my first cut down there. Always loved going there, still do. In fact, I just booked another trip yesterday. Most of my best friends in the world are there. But I like the Pacific Ocean. I already live in paradise. I really don't want to go live somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I'll go down there for a couple weeks. And, it's been about establishing relationships so that I don't have to live there. But, and of course, with today's technology, we can send songs 24/7, 365, anywhere in the world. But you got to have somebody who'll listen. And that means you have to have established a relationship prior to make that happen.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So when you were writing the 20 years you were writing, so you were not living in Nashville then, you must have, because I was always told back in the day you must be present to win if you wanted to get something going in Nashville. And
that is something that I've heard many, many times. Again, my wife didn't want to live there. My kids didn't want to live there. I had sort of a unique situation. I was writing, well, let me back up just a little bit. I started writing in 1972.
mm-hmm.
The Beatles had broken up in 1970. That left a huge vacuum in the music world. And what came about in the 70s was a lot of singer-songwriter stuff. I started writing in 72. By about 76, I realized I was getting nowhere fast because, Joni and Jackson didn't need my songs. And so I started looking around and thinking to myself, well, where do they need songs? I knew nothing about country music. I grew up on the Beatles and the Byrds and the Kinks and the Stones and Dylan, classic rock stuff,
Sure.
Nothing. I never heard Johnny Cash's name until he was on Dylan's Nashville Skyline album in 1968. I'd never heard of him,
Wow.
Again, I grew up on Newport Beach. I don't know. What do I know? I have no business being in country music,
Mm.
But about 76, it's starting to get through my thick head that maybe there's someplace they need songs. And I started doing some research. And I looked at country music, and I realized from research that a major label artist, a significant major label artist, who had a hit record was selling 100,000 units. That was the benchmark. If you could sell 100,000, that's a good record back in the 70s. If you
Mhm.
sold 50,000, that was probably enough to keep you on the label. Okay. The shelf life of a radio single was 13 weeks, and each artist put out 4 singles a year. Every year they had to have a new album. And I thought to myself, gosh, if they're selling so few records, they must not be making any money. I wonder if they have to tour all the time. And if they have to tour all the time, does that mean they don't have the time or the energy to write all the songs they need for their albums? And that's literally why I got interested in country music. I saw a potential maybe there. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I didn't know who Hank Williams was. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought, okay, now how do I start learning? I turned on country radio, which I had never done. Over the next few years, I heard 3 or 4 songs that really got my attention. Crystal Gale's "I'll Get Over You," produced by the great Alan Reynolds. 2 Kenny Rogers songs, "Lucille" and "The Gambler." And then the greatest country song I've ever heard in my life still, "Good Old Boys Like Me," Don Williams, produced by Garth Fundis, written by Bob McDill. Those songs, to me, said, hey, they really write, there's some great songs in country music. It's not only about, selling to a particular niche audience. There's some great work. Now, how can I learn to try to compete with that? I sort of hooked up with a somewhat established folk singer-songwriter, guy named Steve Gillette. He was 10 years older than I. He'd had some background. He'd had some cuts. We started writing these pseudo pop, country, folk, rock songs. We didn't even know what they were, but we were writing them. And then Steve got signed to a major publishing company as a staff songwriter here in LA, a company called Famous Music, which was
no, I've heard of
a
them.
sister company to Paramount Pictures, owned by Gulf and Western. And because I was his primary collaborator, I got a co-publishing deal with them. Started getting to use their name, their facilities, and so on.
Nice.
And around 1980, when the Urban Cowboy film and soundtrack happened, there actually was country music being done in Los Angeles.
Right.
Jim Ed Norman and John Boylan produced that record. Jim Ed was producing Anne Murray, Mickey Gilley, Johnny Lee, Michael Martin Murphy, and Jennifer Warnes, and Kenny Rogers. John was producing others. I had access to them. I had met some people. I'd met Steve Dorff and a few other people out here who were already successful in country music, even though they're here in Los Angeles. So that sort of gave me a little bit of a way in. And then after a couple of years of just kind of being in and out of the LA office at Famous Music, one day somebody said something about our Nashville branch. I had no idea we had a Nashville office. Apparently LA and Nashville were in competition for New York's favor. So they never talked. They competed between each other. But I got on the phone with a guy named Bill Holmes at the Nashville office. And I said, hey, Bill, this is Rex from the LA office. And he basically said, send a couple songs down. And I sent 2 songs that Steve and I had written that we had demoed at Graham Nash's studio. And they were pretty good demos. And we thought they were pretty good songs. And I sent 2 songs down to, this, of course, has been cassette days, down to Bill. And I get a call back about 2 weeks later. And he says, hey, that Tillis cut is looking good. And I said, what Tillis cut? He says, well, Mel Tillis is cutting your song, Bed of Roses. And Harold Shedd is producing.
Wow.
And I said, Harold Shedd, you mean Alabama's producer? Like, one of the 2 hottest producers in all of country music? He goes, yeah. And I can remember the very moment I thought, that was pretty dang easy. I make a phone call, I mail a cassette. 2 weeks later, Mel's still on MCA Records. He's a major label artist. He's still having hits. And the hottest producer, or one of the two hottest producers in the format, is cutting our song. I think I'll just go check out this country music thing. And that's sort of how I started.
Nice.
And then I started planning my first trip. So that's enough talking for me. Ask me something else.
Go ahead, Mark. You got I see one.
No, I was just going to say that's awesome. I mean, I love to hear those kind of stories. I just love, everybody's story is different when those kind of doors open up, and I love those stories. So go ahead, Craig. I'm sorry. I was just.
Well, we'll probably get into this. You mentioned Kenny Rogers and people like that. I know when I first met you, of course, over the phone, because you were in LA and I'm over here in Alpharetta, Georgia. We were talking, and you had given me your history because for those of you that are listening, Rex is the guy out in Los Angeles. He's got quite a few of my tunes now. I think 8 right now, Rex. Right? Something like that. 8
Seems
tunes.
like it, yeah.
Yep. That I've written, and Rex has actually helped me on as a wonderful songwriter. I'm in hog heaven. I've got not only a publisher who loves what he does, but knows what he's doing, knows everybody, thinks about it, isn't just out there shotgunning the tunes, but also if there's a song that is almost there, Rex, being a brilliant songwriter in his own right, he'll come alongside me. I mean, you couldn't ask for any more than that. And I'm going to tell you publicly, thank you for that. And I love it, and I appreciate you, but I wanted to let everybody in the world know that now. So would you tell us, let's see, with the Kenny Rogers. So no, let's back that up a little bit. Garth Brooks, Alan Reynolds. Would you mind telling everybody about the Alan Reynolds connection and how that worked out?
Well, Alan had produced that Crystal Gale record, and prior to Garth Fundis leaving Alan to take Don Williams and produce Don himself, Alan had produced Don prior to that. So Fundis and Alan were partners, and Alan was the number one guy. He was the producer, and Fundis was the engineer. But sort of like in a hairdresser kind of way, where you leave the salon and you take your clients with you. Garth left, went out on his own, and produced Don Williams. Alan continued to produce acts. He produced Crystal, and in the 80s, he produced Kathy Mattea, and was very, very hot.
One of my favorites.
When I got my first Nashville cut and decided I was going to make my first Nashville trip, I had a friend out here, an artist named Lacey J. Dalton. You may have heard of her. She was a hit artist on CBS Epic, and she was a friend of mine. And she knew I was going to make my first trip, and she says, "Who do you want to meet?" And I said, "Well, gosh, if I could meet Alan Reynolds and Garth Fundis, that's who I'd want to meet." So I did meet Alan Reynolds and Garth Fundis. I met with them, went to their studios, met with them. Lacey set that up for me. I met Alan's publishing partner and production partner, Jim Rooney. I met his engineer, Mark Miller, who later produced a little act that you'll hear about here in a minute after Alan had retired. I met Harold Shedd on my first trip. Of course, Harold, in addition to producing Alabama, he, as head of Mercury, he signed Shania Twain, Toby Keith, Billy Ray Cyrus, K.T. Oslin, the Kentucky Headhunters. Completely iconic man in his own right.
Man,
one of the all-time great Nashville producers. I went over to Mel Tillis's office, where I met Jimmy Darrell, who ran the publishing company. I met Buddy Cannon, who was a staff songwriter for Mel. Buddy has gone on to produce Willie Nelson, Kenny Chesney, George Jones, Alison Krauss, on and on. I met my dear friend, Matt Lindsay, who, like me, is an independent publisher, only he's in Nashville. He was the tape copy boy for Mel Tillis in 1983 when I went down there.
That's working from the mail room up, isn't it?
Well, he did, and that happens over and over and over again.
That's awesome.
You work your way up. Matt went on to be vice president of Alan Reynolds Publishing Company. I mean, Matt's a giant in the of all the indie publishers I know in Nashville, if somebody calls me and says, Rex, I've got a song, but I got to have a guy or girl in Nashville, Matt Lindsay's my guy. I'm recommending Matt Lindsay. He's the best. So Matt and I, to this day, we share information. We're comrades. If you know Matt, you know Rex. If you know Rex, you know Matt, you know. So I will pretty much challenge anyone, show me a better first trip in terms of who you got to meet. You know, Alan Reynolds went on to produce a young kid named Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
And Alan is has sold the most records of any country music producer in history. More than Billy Sherrill, more than anybody, more than Harold Shedd, more than anybody, more than Owen Bradley. Alan has sold the most records. A lot of that because of Garth. He also co-produced Hal Ketchum. He co-produced Emmylou Harris. I'm just iconic stuff, you know.
God.
Alan is Yoda. Okay, if anybody asks me who's the wisest person in Nashville, I'm pointing over to Alan.